My brother, he's always been the one who's affected the most. Maybe it's because he's sensitive to it, or maybe the house chooses him. I don't know. One night, he told us he was drifting off to sleep when he heard loud knocking on his door. Desperate, shaking, urgent. He thought it was one of us. But when he got up and looked through the crack, no one was there, and the hallway was dark. Welcome to Dark Reddit, your late-night escape into eerie calm. I'm Alex, your voice in the dark and your guide through the unknown. This is Podcast 18, a shadowy chapter in our ever-growing collection of sleepless nights. Tonight's journey spans 1 hour, a series of chilling tales whispered into your ears softly, slowly, designed to help your mind drift while the darkness unfolds around you. Before we begin, find a quiet, comfortable place to rest. Dim the lights, silence your world, and take one slow, steady breath. Now, close your eyes. Every story in tonight's episode is new, uncharted, untold, and unearthed from the darker corners of Reddit. Tales of strangers, shadows, and things that don't always stay in the past. Let your body grow heavy. Let your thoughts drift. You don't need to watch. You only need to listen. You're safe here. Now, let the night begin. Some places don't want you to sleep. Some places don't want you to leave. And some don't want you to survive. It was supposed to be a crash and sleep kind of day. Nothing unusual, nothing dramatic. Just me trying to sleep off a long night of drinking at my aunt's place. She had offered me the basement, quiet, dark, cool. Seemed perfect. At the time, I got there around 10 a.m., groggy and grateful, and made my way down the narrow steps to her basement. She'd always kept a futon-type couch down there, tucked against the back wall near some dusty storage bins and an old game console. The light in the basement flickered half-heartedly from one corner, just enough to cast long shadows but not quite enough to see everything clearly. I laid down, tossed, turned. My head pounded a bit from the night before, but nothing I couldn't sleep off, or so I thought. It felt like I'd only been lying there maybe 20 minutes when I opened my eyes and glanced at my phone. 9 p.m. What? I blinked hard. There was no way. No one came to wake me. No noise from upstairs. I didn't even feel like I slept. It was like time just jumped. Weirded out but still half out of it, I closed my eyes again, figuring maybe my brain was just playing catch-up. But sleep wouldn't come, so I sat up and turned on my aunt's old game console to kill time. Played for maybe 10 minutes, mind still foggy, before deciding to try again. Back to the futon. Same thing, restless tossing and turning. Checked the time again. 2 a.m. 5 hours. Gone. No dreams. No sleep. No sense of time passing. That's when the unease really started to creep in. I texted my cousin, who was supposed to pick me up at some point, asking when he'd be around. While waiting, I stood on my toes to try and peek out of one of the small basement windows near the ceiling. I could barely see, so I grabbed a nearby stool and climbed up. It was quiet outside. Too quiet. That heavy kind of quiet where even your breathing sounds out of place. I scanned the yard. Nothing. And then SERRKKK. SERRKKK. A deep, dry scratching noise, hard and slow, just a couple inches from my right ear on the concrete wall. I froze, slowly turned my head, half expecting to find a rat, a branch, anything to make sense of it. There was nothing. No source, no animal, no reason. Just that sound echoing in my head and a cold shiver that slid down my spine like ice water. I stepped off the stool and moved toward the other end of the basement where a second window offered a better view of the driveway. On my way there, I passed the furnace. My aunt's furnace always makes 2 loud bangs every 30 minutes like clockwork. It's never subtle, but I was used to it. Bang, bang, okay, normal, bang, 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 bang. Not normal, for fast, violent bangs right after. Different pitch, different rhythm. It sounded angry. My eyes shot toward the stairs. That's when I saw it. Something peeked out from behind them. Quick, subtle, but it was there. A head, human-shaped, just wrong. I whispered to myself, "It's nothing. It's okay. You've dealt with weird stuff before. Just breathe." But my hands were already shaking. I kept walking toward the second window, trying not to make any sudden moves. I reached the bottom of the stairs and turned the corner, just a few feet from the furnace, and that's when I saw it. A massive shadow figure, 7, maybe 8 feet tall, darker than the basement around it, like it absorbed what little light there was. It had no face, no detail, just this towering, human-shaped void staring at me. It didn't move, didn't make a sound, just watched. My throat tightened, my breath hitched, but I remembered something I once heard: if you show fear, it feeds off that. So I told myself again, as long as you're not scared, it won't bother you. I turned back to the window, trying to act like I didn't see it. Stood there pretending to watch for my cousin, though my heart was jackhammering in my chest. After a few long, frozen moments, I climbed down from the window and ran. I didn't look back. I bolted up the stairs, flung open the door, and ran into the street. The night air hit my face like a slap, but I didn't stop. Then, like divine timing, my cousin pulled up to the curb just as I made it to the middle of the road. I practically dove into his car. I was breathless, wide-eyed, barely able to speak as I tried to explain what had just happened. The scratching, the bangs, the thing behind the stairs, the towering shadow watching me. He didn't say much, just nodded and drove, but I could tell from the look on his face. He believed me. That night was the closest anything has ever gotten to me. It didn't feel like a ghost. It didn't even feel like a spirit. It felt like something older, darker, with intent. And if I had stayed in that basement even a little longer, I don't think I would have been the one leaving. The phone rang. I was 10, alone, sick, and the woman on the other end said she was family. But I had never heard her name before. I was home from school, curled up on the couch with a blanket and a glass of ginger ale. One of those early spring days where the sun barely peeks through the clouds and everything outside looks faded and cold. I was 10 years old and feeling just miserable enough that school wasn't an option, but not sick enough to be truly out of it. This was the early 80s. No cell phones, no texts, just daytime TV reruns, ginger ale, and the quiet, empty rhythm of a Gen X childhood. Both of my parents were at work. My older sister was at school. It was just me and the family dog, Rudy, an aging golden retriever who spent most of the day sleeping under the dining room table. I was dozing through an episode of Gilligan's Island when the phone rang. Not the jarring digital chirp of today, the deep mechanical breathing that filled the whole house back then. I remember sitting up slowly, annoyed that it had interrupted my half-sleep. The phone was on the wall in the kitchen. I padded across the cold tile floor in my socks and picked it up. "Hello." There was a pause. Then a woman's voice, soft and warm, polite, almost grandmotherly. "Hi there, sweetheart. Is this my name?" I paused. "Yeah, it's Aunt Margaret. I just wanted to say hello. I heard you were home today." I blinked. My heart beat a little faster. The name didn't click. Aunt who?" "Margaret," she repeated gently, as if I was being silly. "I'm your Aunt Margaret. We haven't met before, and I thought it was time we finally did. I'm coming by to visit." I remember gripping the long cord of the phone in both hands, leaning against the counter. It was the kind of casual thing that adults say, but to me it felt off. Even at 10, I knew our family. I knew all the names. "I don't think I have an Aunt Margaret." "Oh, sure you do," she said, laughing lightly. "How's Rudy doing? Still likes to chase the mailman?" My stomach turned. I hadn't mentioned Rudy. No one had. He wasn't even barking or moving at the time. Asleep under the table like always. I didn't say anything, just stared into the other room where he lay, unmoving. "I spoke to your mom last year," the woman continued. "She mentioned Rudy and how protective he was, and how your sister loves that beach down in Long Island. What's it called? Robert Moses? Or was it Jones Beach?" My mouth was dry. These weren't guesses. These were details. Real ones. "Have you ever been to Northport?" she asked suddenly. "Or Massapequa? Lovely little towns. You'd like them. One day I'll take you, okay? When I visit, tell your parents I called. I'll see you soon." And just like that, she hung up. I stood there, phone still pressed to my ear, listening to the dial tone buzz back into life. I don't remember how long I stayed there, but when my mom came home later that afternoon, I told her about the call. She stopped what she was doing. "Who did you say it was?" "Margaret," I said. "She said she was my aunt. She knew Rudy's name. She knew about Long Island. She said she was coming to visit." My mom stared at me, not just in confusion, but with something else. A tight, controlled kind of fear. "There is no Aunt Margaret," she said. "We don't know a Margaret." My dad came home a little later and she told him. He sat down, leaned forward, and started asking me questions like it was a police interview. Her voice, her tone, exact words. How long she stayed on the phone. Did she say where she was calling from? Did I hear anything in the background? I remember him sitting at the kitchen table that night with a notepad and a look I'd never seen on his face before. My dad worked for the phone company. He had access to more tools and records than most people. The next day, he tried to find the call. There was nothing. No long-distance record. No trace. He didn't stop there, though. He kept at it for a few days, trying to figure out how someone could have known those details. Eventually, he dropped it, but he didn't forget it. None of us did. That's when the other Margaret came up. She wasn't a stranger, not really. She was my dad's aunt, Mary Margaret. but she had gone by Margaret all her life, lived on Long Island, never married. According to my dad, she was a bit difficult. That was putting it lightly, judging by how he said it. The family hadn't spoken to her in years before she died. But here's the thing. She had died. Long before that phone call. I didn't imagine it. I wasn't delirious. I wasn't hallucinating. She asked about my dog by name, told me to say hi to my parents, told me she was coming, but she never did. That was decades ago. I'm in my 50s now. My dad passed away a few years back, and every now and then, usually at a holiday dinner after a few drinks, this story comes up. We all laugh, but there's always a pause after. A silence that stretches just a little too long. My mom insists it must have been a dream, that maybe I imagined the whole thing. But she never says it with confidence. Because deep down, we all know something didn't add up. A dead woman called me on a landline, and she knew things only family would know. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I had stayed on the line longer. Or if I had told her, sure, come by, I'd like that. Or worse, what would have happened if she actually showed up? She said she was coming. She never did. But every now and then, I get a strange feeling when the phone rings, and I don't always answer. It was a quiet night. Just me and my dad at home. Mom and my brother were at work, and the house was silent in that eerie, unnatural way. The kind of silence that seems to press in on your ears until you notice every little creak in the floor or the low hum of the fridge. I'd been holed up in my room all evening, lights off, scrolling my phone under a blanket. One of those lazy nights where the hours pass in a weird blur. Eventually, I got thirsty and figured I'd head to the kitchen. It wasn't super late, maybe 10 or 11 p.m. The hallway lights were on, and the rest of the house was dim but not dark. As soon as you open my bedroom door, you're greeted by 3 big windows that look out over our front yard. At night, though, they don't show much except your own reflection, like 3 tall mirrors made of glass. I've walked past them 1,000 times without giving them a second thought. But that night was different. As I stepped into the hallway, I noticed something strange in the reflection. Not just my own body, not just the ordinary shapes of the furniture behind me. There was a hand waving at me. Not mine, not my reflection. This hand was behind me, in the reflection, but not there in real life. I swear to you, I froze. It was a woman's hand. Thin, long fingers, pale skin, unnaturally pale like she hadn't seen the sun in years. There were bracelets stacked around the wrist. Delicate ones, the kind you'd see on someone much younger. They shimmered a little as the hand moved, calmly, gently waving. And it wasn't just a flash. It didn't disappear like a trick of the light. I stood there completely still, and it kept waving at me for at least 10, maybe 15 seconds. I didn't breathe. I didn't turn around. I just stared at the window, eyes locked on that slow, deliberate wave. And then, without warning, it stopped. I turned around, fast. There was nothing there. No one behind me. No movement. Just the hall, the empty air, and my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. I ran into the kitchen, and it wasn't just from fear. It was like instinct took over, like something in me said, "Move now." I flipped on every light in the kitchen and living room. My dad's bedroom door was closed, and I could hear him snoring softly through the door. He never heard a thing. I didn't go back to my room. I sat at the kitchen table for a while, watching the windows, afraid to see the hand again, and maybe more afraid that I wouldn't. I kept telling myself it was a trick of the light. Or maybe I was just tired. Maybe my brain filled in something that wasn't there. You know, how your mind can play games with you when you're exhausted. But what happened next made all of that feel like denial. Later that same night, maybe an hour after the waving hand, I got up to get a snack. I walked over to the sink, leaned over to rinse out a cup, and out of the corner of my eye, I saw someone standing next to me. It wasn't a shadow. It wasn't vague. It was clear, too clear. It was a man, taller than me, dark hair, head tilted slightly as if he was looking down at the sink too. And the worst part? I recognized him. He looked like my brother. Not the one who was at work. The one who died 3 years ago. I looked at him. I really looked at him. He was wearing a dark hoodie, jeans. His hands were resting on the edge of the sink. He didn't look at me, just stared into the sink like he was remembering something. And the whole time I stood there, the room felt cold. Not the kind of cold from a draft, but the kind that settles inside your bones. I didn't blink. I didn't move. I stood frozen for another 10 or 15 seconds, heart in my throat, until I finally turned my head to face him directly. There was nothing there. No one. Just the soft hum of the fridge and the low trickle of water still dripping from the faucet. I backed away slowly and went back to the table, my mind racing, trying to make sense of it. Maybe it was grief. Maybe I just wanted to see him again. But the woman's hand earlier? That wasn't grief. That wasn't memory. That was something else. I didn't sleep that night. I didn't tell my dad either. He's the kind of guy who wouldn't believe it anyway. But I did call my mom later the next day, told her about the waving hand and the man at the sink. She didn't say much, just kind of went quiet. Then she said something that stuck with me. When your brother passed, remember the night I told you I saw someone in the kitchen, standing right where the sink is? I had forgotten, or maybe I'd buried it. But she had told me something like that months after he passed. She chalked it up to a dream at the time. Now I'm not so sure. I haven't seen anything since that night. But sometimes I pass by those windows and stop just to check. Not because I want to see anything, but because I'm afraid I might. And I don't know what's worse. The idea that it was real, or that it might happen again. It's one thing to hear a noise in the dark. It's another to know it knows you by name. I'll start with today. It's freshest in my mind. Thursday, April 17th. Just a regular evening. I was sitting in the living room, waiting for my mom to get home from work, TV on low volume. Nothing heavy, just background noise. The house was still, and the kind of quiet you only notice when something feels off. That's when I saw it. Just in the corner of my eye, to the left of the TV. A tall, black shadow standing a few feet away from me. I didn't even flinch at first. I thought it was my mom. Maybe her sweater hanging weird from the back of a chair. But when I turned to actually look at it, it was gone. Just like that. And no, she wasn't home yet. I brushed it off. I always do at first. But the thing is, that shadow wasn't the last of it. Just a few minutes later, I started seeing them again. Faces white as porcelain, just on the edge of my vision. And shadows, blacker than the room around them, creeping closer like they knew I could see. I kept feeling it too. That heavy sensation like being watched. Not the way someone stares at you across a room. This was deeper, like something studying me from inside the walls. Even while I type this, I feel it. That invisible pressure on the back of my neck. The way the room feels full, even though I'm alone. Last night was worse. It was around 1 o'clock in the morning. I was trying to fall asleep when I heard something that made my blood run cold. A bell. Now, I do have bells in the house, but they're not exactly in use. One's in the bottom of a junk drawer somewhere. Another's a part of a wall decoration near my closet. The same closet I've seen the girl near so many times before. These bells haven't been touched in years. No one ever uses them. Not even the cats. But it rang, clear as day. I shot up in bed, heart pounding, eyes scanning the room. No one was there. No cat nearby. The bell by the closet was still hanging in place. But I swear to you, it rang like someone tapped it gently, just enough to make sure I heard. And that wasn't the end of it either. I started seeing cat shadows darting across the floor and corners of my room. Now, this part doesn't scare me. It never does. I used to have 2 cats. Handsome, my dark brown tabby, and Onyx, a sleek black shadow of a cat. They passed away, but they never really left. I still see them here and there, brushing past furniture or sitting at the end of the bed. Their shapes flicker and fade, but I know it's them. It actually comforts me knowing they're still around. It's the people I worry about. The first time I saw them, I was only 5. Sleep paralysis. I was stuck in my bed, eyes wide open, heart frozen in place as I watched 4 figures standing near my door. 2 girls, maybe 12 or 13, both in white nightgowns, hair hanging around their faces. One older woman, with her hands folded neatly in front of her, and a man tall, his features hidden, but his presence overwhelming. That was the only time I saw the man, but the others, they've never really left. I've seen the woman many times since, heard her too, sometimes in whispers, sometimes footsteps. The girls I see more often, especially near the bathroom or hallway, always quiet, always watching. I've named them Abigail and Abby. I don't know if they're twins or just sisters, but they seem to come as a pair. More recently, there's been a little boy. I call him Charlie. He shows up in flashes, running down the hall, peeking into rooms. His presence is lighter, less heavy than the others. And weirdly enough, it makes me feel less alone. Like I'm sharing the space with someone curious, not malicious. Still, they've made contact before. I've been touched twice in the shower. Gentle pokes through the curtain that made my breath catch in my throat. One time, I was asleep and woke up to someone lightly pressing a hand to my back. Thought it was my dad for a second until I remembered he was at work. That one stuck with me. It's not just inside the house either. Every summer when I go camping, something follows. There's a man in the trees, not human, not entirely. He's tall, wrong-shaped, with glowing red eyes like coals. I call him Mothman, though he doesn't have wings. Just those eyes. Just the way he stares. There's another one too. A man who hides in the bushes and runs. I've seen him a few times. But the worst was 3 years ago when a new one appeared. He crawled out from under my uncle's car on all 4s and charged at me. I'll never forget the way the gravel crunched beneath him or the wild look in his face. Even my parents have seen them, especially my mom. My dad was a skeptic until recently, but now he doesn't dismiss things so fast. Especially after he started seeing the shadow cats too. There's a hallway between my room and my parents'. My mom sees a black shadow head at the ceiling. Not floating, just there, always watching. I see something else entirely. A white face, expressionless, almost human but not quite. It watches me, and it doesn't feel like it was ever alive. That's what scares me the most, because the kids, the woman, even Charlie, they feel like echoes, spirits of people who once were. But this thing, the white face, feels like it never belonged here in the first place. Still, I don't think it wants to hurt us. I think it's just curious. I think they all are. They stay because they know we can see them, hear them. Maybe, in their own strange way, they just want to be noticed. Maybe we're not as alone in our homes or in the woods as we think we are. And I've made peace with that, for the most part. You don't always see what's there, but sometimes you hear it. I've worked countless flights in my career. Most of them blend together. The service routines, the quiet hum of the aircraft, the conversations with passengers who'll forget your name before they land. But this one has never left me. It was a long-haul red-eye, the kind that stretches the hours into something surreal. Time becomes soup at 35,000 feet. You're floating in it. The plane was a Boeing 777, one of the big ones. Spacious, sleek, but that night it felt more like a tomb. I had just finished my designated crew rest. If you've never been in a crew bunk, picture this: a narrow, windowless crawlspace hidden above the passenger cabin. It's stacked with compact bunks, like tiny coffins with curtains. The only entrance is a steep, narrow staircase tucked discreetly in the rear of the plane. It's meant to be private, quiet, too quiet. That night, I was the last one to wake up. My colleagues had already slipped out, headed back to their stations. I lingered for a few extra moments, mostly to stretch, maybe to steal a few more seconds of peace before returning to the buzz of passengers and service carts. I remember sitting there, still cocooned in my bunk, staring at the soft ceiling above me. The only sound was the drone of the engines and the occasional creak of the aircraft settling. A strange, padded silence filled the space, almost like the bunk area was holding its breath. Eventually, I swung my legs down and stepped out. Every other bunk was empty, curtains drawn neatly to the side. No movement, just stillness. It felt off, like walking into a room that had just been vacated, but too recently. Like the air still remembered the warmth of someone else being there. I shook it off and headed for the staircase. The design of the stairs forces you into a kind of vulnerability. As you climb up, your back is completely turned to the entire bunk space. There's no glancing behind, no checking. It was halfway up when I heard it. SCHHHHK. The distinct, unmistakable sound of a curtain being drawn shut. Not a whisper, not a creak, a deliberate, sliding sound. I froze mid-step. My breath caught somewhere between my lungs and my throat. Every hair on my body stood up. The sound had come from just behind me, not far. One of the bunks. Now here's the thing. There's only one way in or out of the crew bunk area, the very staircase I was on. No one had come back. No footsteps. No rustling. Just me. The others were already at their stations. I knew I was alone. Yet something or someone had closed a curtain behind me. I wanted to look. God, I wanted to turn around. Just a quick glance. Prove to myself that it was nothing. But I couldn't move. You know that primal instinct when your body just knows something is wrong? It was like my spine had turned to glass. Every cell in me screamed, "Don't turn around." I don't know how long I stood there. It might have been 10 seconds. It might have been a minute, but it felt like an eternity. Finally, I forced myself to keep climbing. One slow step at a time until I reached the hatch that opened into the galley. My heart was pounding. My hands were shaking. When I emerged, the cabin looked as it always did. Quiet, sterile, indifferent. My colleagues were there. Passengers half asleep. Nothing out of place. Just another night in the sky. I didn't say anything at first. Who would believe me? But the feeling wouldn't leave me. The weight of that moment, the sound, the stillness that followed, and something else, something deeper. A sense that I hadn't just heard a curtain. I'd been noticed. That was years ago. But even now, whenever that memory surfaces, when I replay the sound in my head, I get that same chill at the base of my neck. I've flown dozens of flights since then, slept in dozens of crew bunks, but that one flight changed the way I move through those spaces. I don't linger anymore. I don't stay behind, and I never, ever turn my back without checking twice. People like to say airplanes are just machines, steel tubes with wings. But when you spend enough time in the air, when you've lived among the clouds and the dark skies, you start to understand something most passengers never consider. Not everything that flies with you is listed on the manifest. I still don't know what I heard that night. Maybe I don't want to. Maybe some spaces are meant to be silent, and when they aren't, you listen and then you leave. But sometimes I wonder, if I had turned around, what would I have seen? And why did it want me to hear it? Some doors are better left closed. But that night, I wanted to see what would happen if we didn't. When I was younger, I had a friend named Jamie who lived in a huge old house that always felt a bit too quiet. You know the kind. Tall ceilings, long hallways, creaky floorboards that sound like whispers when no one's talking. It had a strange energy, and even during the day it felt like the house was waiting for something. I used to go over to his place now and then, mostly after school, a few hours here and there. But there's one night I'll never forget. It was a late Friday evening when I stayed over. We were in his room up on the second floor just playing Xbox, eating snacks, doing what kids do. Nothing felt weird at first. I was always curious about the paranormal. The spooky stuff fascinated me even then, and I knew his house had a bit of a reputation. I'd heard him mention before that it made noises at night, but I never pressed too much. That night, though, I brought it up. "So, your house?" I asked casually, my eyes flicking toward his door. "Is it really haunted? Or are you just messing with me?" Jamie didn't even look up from the controller. "No joke. I hate sleeping with the door open. Can't do it. I hear things." "What kind of things?" He finally paused, setting the controller down. There was a seriousness in his face I hadn't seen all night. Around midnight, sometimes a little after, I hear someone coming up the stairs. Just footsteps at first. Real slow, real clear. And once it hits the top landing, like right outside my room, it starts running at my door. I stared at him, waiting for the punchline. "I've never kept the door open long enough to see what it is," he added, dead serious. "Every time I shut it, just can't do it." I smirked. "So you've never looked?" "Nope, don't want to." A beat of silence passed between us. And then I said something I didn't fully mean. "I'll do it." He raised an eyebrow. "You sure?" "I'll keep the door open. Easy." "You say that now," he muttered. "Let's see." Midnight crept in like fog, barely noticed at first. One moment we were laughing at some dumb joke. The next we were sitting in silence, glancing toward the hall. His room light was still on, but everything beyond it, the hallway, the staircase, was in complete darkness. We turned off the game, and Jamie sat on the edge of the bed. I took a spot on the floor directly across from the open door. Nothing but a sliver of hallway and the top of the stairs was visible from there. My heart was already beating faster, but I didn't let it show. "You know," he said quietly, "you can back out." "Nope," I lied. "I'm good." We waited. For a while, there was nothing but the house settling. Faint creaks, the distant hum of the fridge downstairs. Silence. Then we heard it. Step, step. Slow, deliberate footsteps creaking up the wooden stairs. I froze. The sound was so real. Not subtle. Not a maybe. It was the sound of someone walking upstairs. Clear as day. The kind of sound your ears can't explain away. Jamie locked eyes with me, wide-eyed but calm. "That's it." I nodded. My mouth had gone dry. The steps continued slow, steady, until they reached the top landing. Then nothing. Nothing but stillness. I could see the top of the stairs, and there was no one there. I wanted to say something, but my voice caught. Then it happened. Step, 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 steps. The sound of running feet, charging directly toward the room. My skin turned to ice. Every instinct in my body screamed to slam the door shut. And I did. I leapt forward and threw the door closed just as the sound reached it. Jamie jumped too, nearly knocking over the lamp. We stood there in silence, both breathing hard. Nothing else happened. No knock, no creak. Just the familiar hum of quiet returning like it never left. Later, lying on the floor with the lights back on, I tried to act cool. Told Jamie I almost kept the door open. But the truth is, in that moment, I was terrified. It wasn't a dream. It wasn't imagination. I heard those footsteps. I heard them run. And I didn't want to know what I would have seen if I hadn't shut that door. Years have passed. Jamie moved away, and I haven't seen that house in ages. But I still think about that night more than I probably should. I still wonder what would have happened if I'd waited one more second. If I had faced whatever it was that ran toward us. Was it something tied to the house? A spirit? A replay of some long-forgotten moment? Or was it something worse? Something that wanted to be seen? Sometimes, in the dead quiet of night, when my room is dark and the world has gone still, I'll hear the creak of my own floorboards settle, and my eyes drift to the door. I always keep it shut now, just in case. Because once you've heard footsteps running toward you in an empty house, you never forget the sound. I didn't believe in fate, or gods, or anything beyond what you can see, touch, or explain. At least, not until that winter. It started on a night like any other. Quiet, a little cold, nothing unusual. But at 2:43 a.m., I woke up without reason. My room was dimly lit by the hallway light I always left on, and the house was utterly still. No creaks, no wind, just silence. Then came the voice, not loud, a whisper, really, but right beside me. It was calm, almost melodic, and it didn't speak in full sentences at first. Just fragments. Words like balance, record, and cycle. I sat up, heart pounding. No one was there. My phone showed 2:47 a.m. I thought it might have been a dream, or maybe I was just overtired. But the next night it happened again. Same time, same voice. This time it was clearer. They're watching. Every step, every word. You live between worlds. I didn't sleep after that. Couldn't. For weeks. This voice returned between 2:30 and 3 a.m. Never a minute off. And every time it told me more. Not about the future. Not about me. About us. It spoke of celestial watchers. Gods not of heaven, but of balance. Of consequences. Chisha, Tianyang, Tianin. Names I'd never heard in my life, but they echoed with weight. These weren't gods in the way we speak of in temples or prayers. These were forces, judges, record keepers, not here to save but to account. The voice explained how every day, every action we take is marked, tallied, like threads being woven into a larger pattern. And when that pattern turns dark, whether from lies, cruelty, apathy, or worse, the punishment isn't fire or brimstone. It's misfortune, a failed job interview, a sudden illness, the way people turn their backs without knowing why. The days where nothing goes right and you wonder if the universe is punishing you for something you forgot you did. Those are the gods. One night, I asked, not out loud, but in my thoughts, why me? Why are you telling me this? And that night, I didn't just hear the voice. I saw them. It was like falling without moving. The room around me dissolved into light and shadow, a shifting void of nothingness, until they appeared. Dozens of them. No, hundreds. Some looked human. Some didn't. Some had faces that shifted like mist. Others were cloaked in black, holding scrolls that glowed with golden ink. Chisha stood at the front. I only knew his name because it echoed inside me the moment I saw him. His presence felt like gravity, dense, unrelenting. His eyes were both cold and endless. He told me something I'll never forget. This world is a gate. Every soul must walk the circle of consequence. We do not choose who we speak to. We speak to those whose time has come. Then I woke up. It was 5:30 a.m. I sat in bed for a long time, unsure if it had been a dream or something more. But I wasn't scared. Not exactly. It was like waking from a memory I didn't know I had. At first, I didn't talk about it. Who would believe me? I barely believed myself. But something changed after that night. I started seeing patterns in things. Timing, luck, faces, the way people moved through their lives, oblivious to the quiet rhythm beneath it all. And then, it started happening again. Not voices, but curiosity. I found myself drawn to Chinese astrology, to concepts like Ziwei Do Shu and Bazi reading. Things I'd seen in passing before but never understood. Suddenly, they made sense. It was like I could feel what the stars were trying to say. And what's even stranger, I don't speak Chinese, can't read it, but somehow I knew what I was looking at. I could interpret charts, explain the impact of elements and stars, recognize alignments and conflicts like I had studied them for years. People started asking me questions. I'd read their charts casually at first, and more often than not, what I saw matched their experiences. Losses, gains, moments of great change. I'm no master, not by a long shot, but something opened in me after those nights. A door I can't close. Sometimes I wonder, was I chosen or was I warned? Even now, years later, I still wake up around 2:45 a.m. every so often. Not often, just enough to remind me. I don't always hear the voice. I don't always see anything, but the presence is there, watching, waiting, measuring, because we're all living between two worlds, this one and the one just behind the veil. And whether we believe it or not, they're keeping track. They always say, if walls could talk, imagine the stories they'd tell. But in my house, they don't need to talk. They whisper, they groan, they watch. My name is Diana. I'm from Guatemala, and I don't speak English, but I need to tell you my story, even if I use a translator to do it. Because once you live your entire life with ghosts, you start to wonder, maybe they're not just ghosts. Maybe there's something older, something that remembers more than we ever could. Our house is old. Built by my great-grandfather, it has survived earthquakes, storms, and time itself. It stands with pride, stone and wood weathered but strong. But it is not empty. It never has been. I live here with my cousins, my grandparents, my parents, and my brother. We've all experienced things. Each of us. There's no denying it anymore. But let me start with the everyday. In the early mornings, before the sun warms the mountains, the house begins to stir on its own. We'll hear someone washing clothes, except no one is at the sink. You can hear the water sloshing, the rhythm of scrubbing, even the soft murmur of a woman humming a song none of us recognize. We stopped checking a long time ago. We just let her finish. And then there are the marbles, always in the hallway, always right around 3 a.m. Little glass orbs clicking and clacking across the tile. You can hear them rolling, hitting the baseboards. Once I thought it was my younger cousin playing a prank. But when I opened the door, there was no one there. Just an empty hallway lit only by the moonlight. And silence. Cold, humming silence. My brother, he's always been the one who's affected the most. Maybe it's because he's sensitive to it, or maybe the house chooses him. I don't know. One night, he told us he was drifting off to sleep when he heard loud knocking on his door. Desperate, shaking, urgent. He thought it was one of us. But when he got up and looked through the crack, no one was there, and the hallway was dark. He kept his door locked after that. That same night, my dad heard someone knocking on his window. Now, let me explain. His bedroom is on the second floor, and that window, it doesn't face the street. It faces a wall. No one could stand there, not unless they were floating. He said he looked outside and saw nothing, but he felt something, a pressure in the room, like the air itself was watching him. And me? Well, I used to think I was imagining it. The way my blankets would fall off without reason. How I'd wake up to see my closet door cracked open when I was sure I'd shut it tight. But then came the bruises, little purple marks on my arms, scratches on my legs, sometimes across my back, in places I couldn't even reach if I tried. I'd ask my mom if I hit something in my sleep, or if maybe the cat had scratched me, but there was no explanation. Nothing made sense. The pain would come without memory, and the marks would fade without reason. And then there's the feeling. It's hard to explain, but if you've ever felt it, you'll know what I mean. It's like something is behind you, not close, not touching, but there, watching, waiting. There's one spot in the house where it's strongest, the hallway that connects the bedrooms. Sometimes I'll walk through it and feel like I've stepped through a layer of ice. It isn't cold like wind or a chill. It's a cold that sinks into you, like someone just walked through your soul. When my aunt passed away, it hit our whole family hard. She died in this house. Her room is still here, untouched, preserved. We keep it neat, almost like a shrine. Sometimes I sit outside her room and talk to her. I ask for her protection. I believe she still visits, but not always, and not alone. One night, I thought I saw her standing by the kitchen doorway. Her hair, her silhouette. It looked just like her. But when I called out, the figure turned and it wasn't her. The face was wrong, blank, cold, not angry, just empty. I shut my eyes and ran. We've talked about blessing the house, but my grandfather says it doesn't work like that. The house remembers, he always says. It's not cursed, it's alive. It makes sense in a strange way. This house has seen generations live and die. It has held laughter, arguments, births, and heartbreak. It is full of energy, soaked into the walls, like smoke in fabric. Maybe the spirits here aren't just strangers. Maybe they're echoes of ourselves, of the family before us. Still, I get scared sometimes. Not because I think they want to hurt us, but because I know we can't leave. We're part of this now. Sometimes I'll record videos when I feel the energy shift. I haven't caught anything yet, but I keep trying, just in case one of them wants to be seen. If I've learned anything, it's this: ghosts don't always appear in white sheets or slam doors. Sometimes they sit in the hallway. Sometimes they knock on your window. Sometimes they play marbles at 3 in the morning. And sometimes they leave you scratches so you don't forget they were there. You've made it through the hour. The stories are over now, and the night is quiet again. Let the silence soothe you. Whatever followed you from the tales, leave it here. You're safe, you're calm, and you're already drifting deeper into rest. If you enjoyed these stories, consider subscribing to Dark Reddit for more nightly chills. Until next time, sleep well.